It's been 4 days since we brought down the moose. The meat froze before we could finish cutting it. The hide still stretched on the frame outside, crusted with snow, stiff enough to crack if I touch it. We thought the storm would pass overnight, but it hasn't stopped once. The wind keeps pressing against the shelter, loosening the seams, pushing the cold through every gap. The firewood's damp again. I keep the smallest pieces near the hearth, hoping they'll dry before night. The smoke is thick and bitter, clinging to my clothes and throat. My gloves are soaked. The heat barely reaches my hands. The snow outside builds higher each hour, swallowing the sound of everything else. I feed the fire one stick at a time, watching the flame twitch and shrink. Before daylight fades, I clear the doorway again. The snow's drifted up to my waist overnight, packed hard like salt. My gloves are stiff, the fingers frozen into shape. I lean into the shovel and push slow, steady, keeping my breathing even so the frost doesn't bite my lungs. Outside, everything is white blur. Sky, trees, ground. One endless surface shifting in the wind. I step out far enough to check the logs that brace our shelter. The snow has buried half the wall, only the top layer of bark showing through the ice. I test the roof poles. They groan but hold. I brush snow from my hood and duck back in before the wind eats the skin off my face. Inside, it's dim and smoky. I shake out my coat, hang it by the fire pit, and crouch beside the coals. They're dull red under the ash. I feed them birch bark curls, then blow until the orange light spreads again. The smoke curls up slow, finding its way through cracks in the roof. Once the flame steadies, I set the kettle to melt ice. The movements are automatic now, scrape snow. Check logs, light fire, dry gloves, melt water. The sound of wood hissing in the heat is the only thing that feels steady. Outside, the wind screams against the walls. Inside, the fire answers in short breaths of flame. The moose meat's frozen solid. A single block of red ice. I wedge it against a log and hit it with the back of the axe until it cracks. The sound is dull, heavy like splitting stone. My gloves slip on the slick surface, and the knife barely cuts. I press harder, shaving off uneven strips that curl and freeze again before they fall. The fire's too small to thaw much. The heat licks the edges but doesn't reach the middle. My hands ache from the cold, fingertips stiff and slow. I flex them, but it only hurts worse. Smoke stings my eyes, and every breath tastes like burnt bark. Each time I open the door for more wood, snow rushes in. It coats the floor and starts melting near the fire, then freezes again in a thin sheet. One of the wall logs has shifted. I can see the light of the storm through the crack. I push a fur pelt against it, but the wind finds its way through anyway. The meat's thawing now, enough to cook if I can hold the flame steady. I glance at the wall, then at the fire. Fixing the crack can wait. Hunger can't. I pull a flat stone from near the doorway and set it beside the fire. Frost smokes off it fast, hissing as it warms. I lay a few strips of moose meat across the surface. The sound is sharp at first, then turns into a low hiss as the fat melts and runs into the cracks. Steam rolls up, carrying that raw iron smell that always makes me hungrier than I should be. I crouch close, turning the meat with the knife tip. The fire's too weak to cook it even, so I shift the coals and feed in small sticks to keep the heat balanced. When the flame climbs too high, it burns the edges black. When it drops, the meat starts to freeze again. I adjust inch by inch. It's constant work. No rhythm, no rest, just me, the stone, and the flame. Smoke thickens until the air tastes like ash. My eyes sting and the roof above fades behind a curtain of gray. I can hear the wind pushing harder now, testing every seam of the shelter. It sounds alive, like it's trying to find a way in. Bits of snow drift through the cracks, landing on the stone with a hiss. I shove them aside with the blade, careful not to lose heat. The meat finally starts to brown, curling at the edges. I slice one piece open. The center's pink and warm. It's enough. I set it near the coals to finish while I stack the rest of the wood along the wall, saving what's dry. My hands are shaking from the cold, but the fire's still breathing. For a few minutes, the wind outside feels far away, and the smell of cooking meat almost feels like safety. The wind shifts fast, hitting the shelter from a new side. It feels like a shove, sudden, violent. The whole frame jerks, snow spilling through the cracks in thick waves. The coals vanish under white in an instant, and the light turns red and dull beneath the ash. I drop to my knees and dig. The snow bites my hands through the gloves, so I rip them off and claw with bare fingers. My skin burns, then goes numb. Somewhere under the slush, a faint orange glow still fights. I dig it out, blow hard, and feed it a twist of bark. Nothing. I blow again until my chest aches. Finally, a thin thread of flame flickers back to life. The roof creaks. One pole snaps with a noise like breaking bone. Snow pours down the wall and into the fire pit. I throw in splinters of resin wood. Anything dries enough to catch, shielding the flame with my body. Sparks leap up, stinging my face. The heat licks my sleeve, and for a second I smell burning wool. Another pole gives way. The roof sags, spilling snow down my back. I grab the tin from beside the fire and scrape the cooked meat off the stone before it's buried. The ground shakes when the beam hits. Smoke and snow fill the air, turning everything into a gray blur. I curl around the flame, keeping it alive with the last bits of bark and breath I've got. The shelter's coming apart above me, but I don't move. The fire's still there, small, trembling, but alive. When the wind finally slows, the world sounds hollow, just the faint hiss of snow settling. Half the roof's gone, the rest leaning like a broken jaw. The floor's buried in white except for a small circle around the fire where the heat kept it bare. Smoke hangs low, thick and gray. Too tired to rise, I sit close to the coals, hands stretched out until they sting from the warmth. The tin sits beside me, its lid blackened from the smoke. Inside, the meat's half-cooked, edges crisp. Center raw, but it's warm. I tear a piece with my fingers, chew slow. It tastes of ash and iron. My teeth ache from the cold, but the heat spreads through my chest like medicine. The storm hums outside, softer now. I can hear trees again, bending under their own weight. I'll have to rebuild in the morning, dig the roof poles out before they freeze solid. But right now, the fire's holding, and that's enough. I pull the blanket tighter and watch the smoke drift up through the broken roof into the dark. Snow still falls through the opening, landing quiet on the coals, melting one flake at a time.